Remember to press star 3 to ask a question. Now, Congressman Kind.
Great, thank you, Leah. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is actually my 11th telephone town hall meeting within the last year. And just to be clear, this will not replace my normal in-person town hall meetings that I will have throughout the course of the upcoming year back home in our community. So look out for information of when I will be in your backyard having a live town hall meeting that you can attend in person if you want to. But
thank you for calling Congressman Kind's telephone town hall. Can I have your name and where you're calling from, please?
My name's Chris in Onalaska, Wisconsin.
And what question did you have for the Congressman?
I'd like to find out why voters should believe the Congressman's a good steward of our tax dollars.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks.
I will pass this on to the Congressman. We will try to get to your question tonight, but if the Congressman isn't able to answer your question, please stay on the line. And at the end of the call, you'll be able to leave him a voicemail. I will now put you back into the town hall so you can hear what the Congressman Kind has to say.
Okay, thanks.
by name, given the outstanding performance that they performed. But these deployments are very difficult, and I know that when a soldier deploys, the whole family deploys with them, with the amount of sacrifice that goes into it. So it's good to get them back home. They were there for us. We need to be there for them right now, and I'm going to do my best to make sure that funding for the veterans programs, veterans health care, the various programs that our veterans are eligible for is there for them when they need it. Now, secondly, a large part of my focus right now has been what can we do working together to get this economy back on track, creating good-paying jobs. We're coming through one of the toughest economic crises that our nation faced since the Great Depression. There are a lot of causes and a lot of reasons for why we find ourselves in this position, from the financial meltdown to the housing crisis to other structural changes that have been taking place with our national economy. But I do sense that we've bottomed out, we've turned the corner, and we're going to start seeing some positive job growth again. Maybe not as quick and as rapid as all of us would like to see, but nevertheless it's starting to take hold. But a large part of my focus has been what we can do to help small businesses and our family farmers, first of all, survive, but then also expand and get the job creation again in western Wisconsin. So from my perch on the Ways and Means Committee, I've been very focused on various programs that will help our small businesses and family farmers, such as accelerated depreciation and also immediate expensing of any expenses associated for their businesses. We also include a net operating loss carryback so that those businesses that are losing money this year can offset that immediately based on some profits that they may have earned in previous years, instead of having to amortize that out over a 20-year period. Again, trying to increase the cash flow and the capitalization of these businesses. We've been working on small business job creation bills here in Washington to partner with them. I've been a strong advocate and had forums throughout western Wisconsin on the availability of small business administration loans. These are federally backed loans that go through our local lenders to small businesses who need those lines of credit, who need to make sure that the credit markets are functioning very efficiently for them. And there are some changes that we're proposing with some of the SBA loans as well. And then finally, I just want to commend the effort that our local lenders are making. These are our community banks, our credit unions, who are going the extra mile and bending over backwards, working with businesses as best they can to make sure that those lines of credit are available. And I know they've had to make some tough decisions. I'm especially going to be focusing on the availability of credit for our family farmers as they go into the spring plant to make sure that they keep their operations going. But even there, after one of the toughest years in our living memory, especially for dairy producers and pork producers, things are starting to stabilize and come back for our rural communities because of the increased commodity prices. So there is a lot going on right now that we can talk about. Obviously, healthcare reform is still pending. We're still working on much needed, I believe, financial reform so so we are never held hostage to these large banking institutions on Wall Street again, who in the past may have been considered too big to fail, but in the future, with the changes that we have to make, from having a systemic risk regulator in charge of overseeing these markets to make sure that they don't pose undue risk for the entire economy, to bringing the derivatives and the hedge fund markets into an exchange and into the public light with greater transparency and accountability, and also the ability with dissolution authority so that these big institutions, when they do make a bad bet, when they do over-leverage themselves, that there'll be a trust fund established, financed by them, not used for their bailout, but for their funeral expenses, so that they can go out of business, but in a way that does not jeopardize the entire United States economy along with them. So those are some of the items that we're working on with financial reform, so that the capital markets work well, so that we do not receive an adverse impact on our Main Street businesses and on our livelihood back home. And we're just waiting right now for the Senate to be able to come up with a workable package and pass something so that we can reconcile and get it to the President for his consideration as soon as possible. So let me just stop there, because I know we've got some people waiting in the queue to jump in here with some comments and questions. Again, it's *3. And also during the course of this, I'm hoping to be able to ask a couple poll questions, and you'll be able to register your opinion on those questions by pressing 1 for yes, 2 for no, but we'll get to those poll questions in a little bit. So with that, Leah, maybe we can go to the first caller and start hearing from people.
Great, and definitely remember to press *3 to ask a question. Our first caller is Chris from Onalaska. Chris, you have a question about the Congressman being a good steward of taxpayer dollars. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Congressman, in January you called for fiscal responsibility in Washington, but then in February you voted to increase the nation's debt ceiling to $14 trillion. In addition, you voted in favor of hundreds of billions of dollars in spending for failed stimulus and bailout programs, and you were given a grade of F from the nonpartisan National Taxpayers Union. With these facts in mind, why should voters believe that you are capable of being a good steward of our tax dollars?
Well, thank you, Chris. I really appreciate you weighing in, because this is a very serious issue. You know, these structural deficits we face as a nation is a challenge that we all share, and for the sake of the future of our children and grandchildren, we have to get serious about it. And that's why I've been a strong proponent of the Bipartisan Fiscal Commission the President is establishing that will take a look at our long-term debt obligations and come back with recommendations to Congress on an up-and-down vote of how we can turn these deficits around. But there's going to be a role for all of us to play in. Listen, there's plenty of blame to go around, Chris. I mean, the previous administration under Republican Congresses doubled our national debt in 8 short years. They inherited budget surpluses from President Clinton to the tune of $5 trillion, and they immediately turned that around into $6 trillion worth of debt, which put us into the fiscal hole and the economic crisis, in part, that we have today. But Democrats don't have clean hands on this as well. That's why I've been one of the leading proponents of earmark reform. And it's something that was just announced today, that there's going to be a ban on all earmarks for for-profit companies, so that all companies that are in the business of making a profit have to compete for government contracts under an open, competitive bid process. No more line items or earmarks designated to a particular company. And you may recall, Chris, most of the legal problems and ethical problems that members of Congress have run into in recent years have typically involved earmarks for for-profits and campaign contributions and favors and kickbacks that came from all of that. But part of what we need to do to turn the deficits around, because the fastest growing area of spending today in the federal government is healthcare reform. Steps that we have to take to bring the cost of healthcare down so it's more affordable for families, for businesses, and for public budgets. Otherwise, we're just fooling ourselves with everything else. And it's one of the reasons why I think healthcare reform is so important, that we stay focused on that to make it more affordable and get a grip on these exploding costs, which will only add to the deficit and the debt in the future. I personally don't request earmarks. I personally work hard to return a significant portion of my office budget back to the Treasury for debt reduction. I forego cost of living adjustment increases in my salary. These are all things I have personal control over. But I'm also leading the charge under pay-as-you-go budgeting to make sure that Congress is acting in a fiscally responsible manner. Perhaps that came from my worked with former Senator Bill Proxmire in investigating many of his Golden Fleece awards for wasteful government expenditures. So more work needs to be done. There's no question about it. And we need to develop a strategy of turning these deficits around for the sake of economic growth, but especially for the sake of our children's future. I'm committed to doing that.